Escape from Tarkov's Ground Zero map on PVE is probably one of the most infuriating maps to play because it is just so RNG dependent. But there is definitely some ways in which you can counter this, and that's exactly what we're looking at today. So if that sounds good, then make sure to subscribe down below, but most importantly, if you're watching this and you want to see some more, make sure to like the video. But with that out of the way, let's take a look at how you can deal with this map. So let's start with the elephant in the room. The first big problem that you'll encounter on Ground Zero. The police baton wielding annoying boss Coloni, which not only does he thump you with his little baton, but he also ends up jamming your weapon, which for a realistic game like Tarkov seems quite unrealistic. But either way, this boss has 4 main spawns in the street of the game, so 4 spawns in the street. So he can spawn basically all up the main street of Ground Zero, alongside 2 buildings that are relatively close to the extract that you're going to need to go to, and also he has 2 spawns underground. So for a total of 8 spawns on a map that is relatively small, makes it very unpredictable as to where he's going to spawn. It's not like Reshala where he spawns in like 3 different locations in the game. It's far more different and far more complicated to know exactly where he is on the map, because primarily what you're hearing, or at least attempting to, is to hear where he is. But the best thing that you can do in terms of countering the boss is you need to make sure that you do A, either have 1 weapon, or B, have 2 weapons, and C, make sure that you are ready at any point to encounter Coloni. Now, yes, that's pretty basic information, but we'll get into a bit more of an advanced thing as to how you actually deal with him directly, and that is that essentially when he comes towards you, you'll hear him voice line. He then pulls out his baton usually, and that is the point at which you will end up doing your little fear mechanic where your weapon jams, you can't use it, you have to then inspect it using the L button, and then you have to press Shift T. Now what most people do is they stand there, they spamming L, and then they'll Shift T, and then they get their weapon back to actually fire, at which point Coloni has either battered you to death with his baton, or he's actually pulled out his shotgun or the other guns that he actually gets on him, and then he shot you. But what you can do that works really effectively is start to sprint as fast away from Coloni as possible. This is the best way you can do it. There's no point in facing him whilst you're trying to repair your weapon malfunction. And so you press L immediately, then you want to sprint away, and whilst you're sprinting away you press the T button because you're holding down Shift, and as soon as you press T it will start repairing your weapon malfunction. And then what you do from there is essentially you can deal with the boss how you want to. Now himself as a AI is not particularly too difficult to deal with. It's more of the weapon jam that kind of stalls you in your engagement and kind of puts you on edge. You don't know what's going on necessarily all of the time, and you never know where he is because the proximity range on his little baton is kind of broken to the point where like he could be outside of a building where you are and you're on the ground floor, and he pulls out his baton, your weapon jams, and then you're like, where the hell is he? You're searching around trying to figure out where he is, at which point he's targeted you and taken you out. But what the best thing is to do is break away from that engagement, repair your weapon to where you can actually use it, and then you target the boss. So you can use nades. Nades are a really good and effective way of taking out Coloni. You can see in the clip here, what we did is literally sprint directly away from him, did our little weapon malfunction repair, and then essentially we're back in the fight and we can re-peek him and just spray him down. The lucky thing about Coloni is he wears an absolutely garbage helmet, which means that you can just headshot him. 2 bullets to the head will usually deal with him, or if you've got some high damage sniper rounds, 1 to the head can also deal with him. But of course that's kind of very difficult on a map that is so close quarters engagement, so most of the time you're going to be using things like a submachine gun, and so you want to just mag dump that head area or upper chest and hoping to get a couple of neck shots or a headshot, and then you can deal with him really easy. So the actual AI is not too bad, But Colontai spawns with guards, and these guards can be pretty annoying as well, as they'll kind of wolf pack you and they'll all come in at the same time. So if you're playing ground zero, you want to be taking in 60 rounders if your weapon can actually take those, and essentially you can then just have a much more flexible engagement with the target. It might not give you the best ergo, but it definitely works much better than if you just have your standard rounds out and 30 round mag, 20 round mag, whatever you're running. Having that extra mag capacity is very, very useful, and it means you're not having to spend as much time reloading, which is much better on a map that is just constantly filled with scav, PMC and boss engagement. So that's kind of what I do to deal with Colontai himself. But there is a couple of other things that you need to be aware of, which is the PMCs. Now, PMCs can spawn all over the place as with the boss, and this is once again why the whole map is kind of RNG dependent. And so what you want to do is make sure that you are going in the buildings. Buildings are your biggest friend on ground zero. There is no point in running through the middle of the street. If you're out in the street, this is a prime target to actually get taken out by a random scav that's hiding in a bush, because there is a ton of bushes on ground zero in the center of it. B, a PMC hiding in a bush, or a PMC through a window that is just a pain in the arse to actually see, or C, all of the above and the boss. And so making sure that you go in buildings, clearing those buildings on the ground level and working your way through each of the buildings and taking the long way around the map, going down the stairs, going up the other stairs, and then kind of snaking your way around the map to go to Emicom or the basement is your kind of key extract. Usually you'll spawn on the other side of the map on PVE, so you're not really getting too lucky. And if you've got money for the car extract and you are relatively close, maybe you have to go into the center of the map for a quest or something like that, you can take the car extract. It's really not too bad. Nothing really will push you there other than the boss, obviously, and some PMCs if they do spot you and you haven't taken them out already. But once you kind of get there, you can lie down on the floor and it's really not too much of an issue. The other thing is navigating around the map can be significantly easier, especially if you need to extract. The kind of safest way that I have done when I was playing on the map is to go through the underground. Now, the underground obviously does have two boss spawns. They can spawn basically on each side of the kind of intersection that you do have in the map, where you can go outside, kind of on the ramp that leads down to the basement or the underground. And so going through the underground has a better chance of you not meeting the boss. And so what you can do is essentially just push from there and go through the underground. It's much easier to clear as well. There aren't bushes in the way. It's far better kind of an engagement distance. Often you've got a lot of cover in between you and opponents, and so it just is the much better way of actually navigating through the map. You still have to come out somewhere and you have to go through open ground, but it makes it a lot easier to navigate through and increase your survival rating on ground zero. Now, if you're doing certain tasks that require you to use non-meta weapons or stuff that requires you, like for example Shooter Born in Heaven, which has the requirement to get headshot kills on PMCs on ground zero, the kind of weapons that you want to be using are, you could go with a flare. This is the typical way that I've done it for Shooter Born in Heaven on ground zero, because you can kind of stay at a long distance, and usually there'll be PMCs in the center of the map near the grassy area, and this is much easier to take out those PMCs because you can see them from further away. You go up into one of the second stories of a building or the first story of a building, and you can see right down into that grassy area in the middle. And using a flare, for example, you can quite easily spot those PMCs, and they often won't aggro you, provided you're kind of well back within the building and kind of only giving a small peek of yourself. Obviously they can still aggro you, so don't just wide swing a window and hope that it's going to be fine, but it really does make it a lot easier to complete those tasks. But as far as actual weapons to use on the map, you want to be going with a weapon that both has the flexibility as well as decent ammunition, because you're always in close quarters engagement, and that ammunition can be very, very crucial. So running your best ammo on ground zero can be a bit of a good play in terms of when you come up against PMCs. You want to make sure that you're going straight through their armor and not having to kind of think about all of the like 5 to 10 locations that PMCs can spawn in all kinds of directions when you're trying to move through the map. Just dealing with each one individually very quickly, it's kind of the way to go. Now in the game clip you're seeing, I was running the AS VAL. We were using the pretty bad ammunition. We were using SP5. But of course, if you've got higher caliber ammunition, I was just trying to waste it. I've got a load of it and I wasn't too bothered. I was only really using the AS VAL as a secondary weapon to get my task done for Shooter Born in Heaven. But SP5 worked really well. And it works quite well because it gets high damage, but it also gets kind of a very, very fast fire rate because of the fact that now you can just pump guys who may push you all in one go. And so that works really well. It's got 30 round mags, which is okay, but not optimal, which is where you could maybe use an AKS-74U, an M4 with 60 rounders, you know, whatever kind of assault rifle or submachine gun that you find really suitable. And that you're comfortable with, especially in close quarters. That is what you really want. Now you can run a scope, you can run one that has a comfortable zoom level, so like 1 to 1.5 times zoom, and then a decent magnification zoom, thinking of things like the Razer HD as well as the Voodoo. These work really well on ground zero because, you know, you can target at both short and longer ranges. And if you are trying to push to an extract, for example, you can kind of scope out where the PMCs or the scavs are, and of course the boss himself, if he is lying around there, and that way you kind of get the best of both worlds. It works really well. Of course, insurance on PvE comes back every time, so definitely a benefit. And if you do get taken out, it's not the end of the world. You get your stuff back, it's not a problem. So yeah, using those is kind of the key thing that I did. It worked really well. Obviously taking in the best armor that you can, especially making sure to put in side plates, because ground zero, as I said, you can get flanked from all kinds of directions. So having the side plates in your armor rigs or your body armor is very, very key to do because of the fact that, yeah, you can get shot in the side. So level 6 plates in the side if you've got them available, level 5 at least. And of course level 5 in the front is preferable, and of course level 6 being the best. But yeah, that's kind of what I did in order to get my task done, and as well have some pretty decent raids on ground zero. I thought I'd kind of highlight it to you because it can be a pain point for a lot of people, but once I kind of figured these sorts of things out and the routes to take, going around the outside, using the underground, making sure to go building to building as opposed to going anywhere near the center of the map, especially at the beginning of the raid. You can do it later on once you've taken out PMCs, but they can be super cracked. They spot you from super far ranges, and through bushes they will just pump you. So, and there's not really a chance of seeing them unless you've got a FLIR or a thermal, at which point you get terrible FPS anyway. So yeah, it can be a real pain to fight PMCs in that center area. So hence why you want to take them out from long ranges, up in the 2 stories of buildings, 1 story of building, etc. It's much easier to see them, and you can take them out for when you want to go in the center of the map. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of ground zero, and I just wanted to cover some tips that I've used for PvE. If you found it useful, make sure to like it, and of course subscribe down below for more Escape from Tarkov. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and join me back in the next video coming soon.